The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a metal canyon. Thousands of alien beings filled the floating seats that hung in the air around a central platform. Their voices mixed together in a sound like rushing water, but underneath, it all was something else. Laughter. Quiet, mean laughter. Ambassador Taman Park stood on the platform in the center of it all. His human form looked small and weak next to the massive creatures around him. The Vorthak representative towered above him, its 6 arms ending in claws that could cut through steel. The Alterian delegate floated nearby, its body made of living crystal that caught the light and threw it back in sharp colors. "These are your warships?" The Vorthak's voice came out like grinding metal. It held up a data pad that showed pictures of human vessels. "These metal boxes with their simple designs?" Taman kept his face calm. He had practiced this moment for years. "Yes, honored delegate. These ships represent the best of human engineering." The sound that came from the Vorthak might have been laughter, if laughter could cut glass. Around the hall, other aliens joined in. The Zephyrians whistled through their breathing holes. The crystalline accord made sounds like breaking ice. Even the usually quiet Voidwalkers seemed amused. "Look at these weapons," the Alterian said. Its voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "Simple projectile launchers, basic fusion drives. Where are your plasma cannons? Your quantum shields? Your dimensional warheads?" Captain Yuna Kim stood next to the ambassador. She was a small woman with gray hair and scars on her hands. She had been in space for 30 years, fighting pirates and exploring dead worlds, but she said nothing. She just watched and listened. "Perhaps," the Vorthak continued, "humans should stay in their little solar system until they learn to build real ships. These toys would not last 5 minutes against modern raiders." More laughter filled the hall. Taman felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. "Our ships may look simple, but they are effective. We have protected our space for decades." "Protected from what?" The Alterian's crystal body flashed, brighter. "Space rocks, your own kind? You have never faced a real enemy." The central coordinator, a being that looked like a floating brain in a tank, spoke for the first time. Its voice went directly into everyone's minds. "The request for membership in the Galactic Defense Coalition requires advanced military technology. Ships that can stand against the threats that face civilized space." "Threats like what?" Captain Yuna asked. She spoke for the first time since entering the hall. The hall went quiet. The central coordinator's tank glowed brighter. "There are things in the deep dark between galaxies, things that consume worlds and leave nothing behind. Our scouts have seen the remains of entire star systems stripped bare." "And you think our ships cannot help against these threats?" Taman asked. "Your ships," the Vorthak said, waving one of its claws at the images, "are hundreds of years behind our technology. They have no quantum matrices, no dimensional weapons, no adaptive armor. They are solid metal with simple engines and basic computers." The ambassador nodded slowly. "I understand your concerns. Perhaps we need more time to develop our technology." "Much more time," the Alterian agreed. "Come back when you have learned to build real warships, when you understand how space combat actually works." But Captain Yuna was thinking about other things. She was thinking about the real human fleet, hidden in asteroid belts and disguised as mining stations. She was thinking about the ships that looked nothing like the ones in these pictures. She was thinking about Admiral Dongwu Li, watching this meeting from his secret command center. The meeting continued for hours. The aliens asked questions about human technology, and Taman answered them honestly. Yes, their ships used kinetic weapons, metal slugs fired at high speed. Yes, their armor was just layers of steel and ceramic. Yes, their computers were simple compared to alien quantum systems. What he did not tell them was that humans had been listening to alien communications for 50 years. Every frequency, every coded message, every private conversation between alien ships. Humans had learned every alien language, studied every alien weapon, mapped every alien trade route. What he did not tell them was that the ships in the pictures were decoys, old freighters dressed up to look like warships. The real human fleet was built in hidden shipyards in the outer system, places where no alien had ever looked. What he did not tell them was that human engineers had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They had learned how to make quantum shields fail. They had found ways to disrupt dimensional weapons. They had discovered that the more complex a system was, the easier it was to break. Dr. Bo Young Choi watched the meeting from Earth. She sat in a small room filled with screens and computers. Around her, other scientists worked on projects the aliens would never understand, projects that had been running for decades. "How long until they realize?" asked Dr. Seojin Kim, who sat at the next workstation. "Realize what?" Bo Young asked, not looking away from the screen showing the council meeting. "That we have been preparing for this war for longer than they have been fighting it." Bo Young smiled. It was not a nice smile. "They will never realize. They think they are so advanced, so superior. They cannot imagine that a primitive species like ours could outsmart them." On the screen, the vote was ending. The Galactic Defense Coalition formally rejected humanity's application for membership. The reasons were clear: inadequate technology, insufficient firepower, lack of advanced defensive systems. Taimin bowed to the assembled delegates. "We thank the Council for their time and consideration. Perhaps in a few centuries, when we have advanced our technology, we will be worthy of joining your great alliance." "A few centuries might not be enough," the Vorthak said. "You would need to completely rebuild your entire military from scratch." "We will consider your advice," Taimin replied. As the human delegation left the Great Hall, Captain Yuna allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had no idea what they had just done. They had looked at the decoy ships and seen exactly what humans wanted them to see. Simple, primitive, harmless. Meanwhile, in the outer system of Sol, Admiral Dongwu Li stood on the bridge of the Sol's Hammer. The ship looked nothing like the images shown to the aliens. Its hull was black and angular, designed to absorb scanner beams rather than reflect them. Its weapons were hidden inside armored bays. Its engines could accelerate fast enough to flatten any alien crew. "How did it go?" he asked the communication officer. "Exactly as planned, sir. They rejected us completely, called our technology primitive and useless." "Good." The admiral looked out at the stars. "Signal all fleet commanders. Begin final preparations. The real war is coming, and when it does, we will be ready." Around the solar system, hidden bases came to life. Ships that had been disguised as asteroids powered up their engines. Weapons that had been built in secret were loaded with ammunition that could penetrate any known armor. Soldiers who had trained for this moment their entire lives checked their equipment one final time. The aliens had made their choice. They had decided that humans were too primitive to be useful allies. They would learn the truth soon enough. In the deep dark between galaxies, something stirred. Ancient machines that had consumed 1,000 worlds turned their attention toward the Milky Way. They had detected the signals from the Galactic Council. They knew that new prey waited for them. The Devourers were coming, and they would find a galaxy that thought it was ready for them. They would find advanced civilizations with plasma weapons and quantum shields and dimensional technology. But they would also find something else. Something that the galaxy had dismissed and ignored and laughed at. Something that had been waiting and watching and preparing. They would find humans. Back on Earth, in a secure facility buried deep underground, technicians made final adjustments to systems that had taken decades to build. Dr. Bo Young Choi walked between rows of computers, each one running programs that the aliens would have called impossible. "Status report," she said to her assistant. "All defensive networks are online. The virus packages are ready for deployment. The quantum scramblers are charged and waiting. And our ships? Hidden and ready. The aliens still think we have less than 100 vessels total. They have no idea about the real fleet." Bo Young nodded. She had spent her entire career preparing for this day. She had studied every alien species, learned their weaknesses, designed weapons specifically to exploit their overconfidence. "What about the coalition forces?" she asked. "Scattered across 1,000 systems, each one protecting their own territory. No unified command structure. They have never fought together as a single force. Perfect. Bo Young looked at a screen showing the positions of every major fleet in the galaxy. They have spent so long believing they are superior that they have forgotten how to work together. When the real enemy comes, they will face it alone. And us. We will face it as one species with one goal, using tactics they have never seen before. She turned to face her assistant. The aliens think war is about having the most advanced weapons. They are wrong. War is about understanding your enemy better than they understand you. Outside, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. In a few hours it would be dawn in Seoul, where Admiral Lee's flagship waited in orbit, Su. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council had laughed at human warships. 3 months since they had sent Ambassador Tae-min Park away with jokes about primitive technology and simple weapons. 3 months since they had decided that humans were too backward to help protect civilized space. Now the joke was not funny anymore. Commander Solby Park stood on the bridge of the observation station at the edge of Vorthak space. Around her, alien technicians worked at control panels that looked like art pieces. Everything glowed with soft colors and made musical sounds when touched. It was all very advanced and very beautiful. It was also completely useless. Long-range sensors are picking up massive energy readings, reported a Vorthak officer. Its 6 arms danced over the controls like a pianist playing a complex song. Distance, 47 light-years and closing. What kind of energy readings? Solby asked. She was the only human at the station, sent there as an observer after the coalition had rejected human membership. They had said she could watch and learn how real space defense worked. Unknown configuration. The signatures do not match any known starship design. On the main screen, dots of light appeared at the edge of sensor range. At first there were only a few, then dozens, then hundreds. By the 7 suns, whispered the station commander of Vorthak named Kliktar. There are thousands of them. Solby watched the display with growing understanding. She had seen reports like this before, in classified human files that the aliens would never be allowed to read. Reports from the ruins of dead galaxies where entire civilizations had simply vanished. You need to evacuate the outer colonies, she said quietly. Evacuate? Kliktar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Our defenses are the most advanced in the galaxy. Our plasma matrix vessels can destroy anything that threatens us. Have you ever fought these enemies before? We have never needed to. Our quantum shields can stop any weapon. Our dimensional cannons can tear holes in space itself. Solby said nothing. She had read the reports. She knew what was coming. The first attack came 6 hours later. The colony world of Theta Vorthak had 2 million inhabitants and a defense fleet of 50 ships. The Vorthak vessels were works of art, with curved hulls that seemed to glow from within. Their weapons could bend light itself into deadly beams. The enemy ships that dropped out of hyperspace looked like floating cities, made of metal and darkness. They were huge and ugly and wrong. They did not glow or sing or make music. They just moved forward like a storm cloud made of steel. The battle lasted 4 minutes. The Vorthak ships fired first. Their plasma beams lit up space like lightning. The dimensional cannons tore holes in reality itself. Quantum mines exploded in flowers of impossible color. The enemy ships absorbed it all. The plasma beams disappeared into their hulls like water soaking into sand. The dimensional weapons had no effect. The quantum mines exploded harmlessly against armor that seemed to learn and adapt with each hit. Then the enemy fired back. Their weapons were not beautiful. They were not advanced. They were just effective. Beams of raw energy that cut through quantum shields like they were made of paper. Projectiles that punched through dimensional armor without slowing down. Something that looked like simple missiles but carried warheads that turned matter into energy. One by one, the Vorthak ships died. Their advanced technology failed them. Their superior firepower meant nothing. Their beautiful vessels became clouds of glowing debris. Commander Solby watched it all from the observation station. She saw the defense fleet destroyed. She saw the orbital platforms crushed. She saw the enemy ships move toward the planet below. We have to help them, Kliktar said. His voice shook with fear and disbelief. Help them with what? Solby asked. You just watched your most advanced ships get destroyed like toys. What can this station do that they could not? We have to try. The station's weapons were even more advanced than the ship's. Quantum torpedoes that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. Plasma streams that burned at the temperature of stars. Gravity weapons that could crush a moon. The enemy ships ignored them all. Their hulls seemed to drink in the energy. Their armor adapted to each new attack. Within minutes, the weapons that had taken decades to build were completely useless. They are learning, Solby said. Every time you hit them, they change. Every weapon you use becomes less effective. That is impossible. No technology can adapt that fast. These are not just ships. They are machines that think and learn and grow. They are the devourers. The word hit the bridge like a physical blow. Every alien present had heard stories about the devourers. Ancient legends about machines that ate worlds and left nothing behind. Most had thought they were just myths. Now they knew better. The attack on the planet began at dawn, local time. The devourers did not land troops or demand surrender or give warnings. They just started taking the world apart piece by piece. Their ships lowered massive tubes toward the surface and began to suck up everything they could reach. Soil, water, buildings, people. It all went up into the hungry machines above. Within hours, continents became deserts. Oceans became empty, basins. Cities that had stood for thousands of years became nothing but holes in the ground. Signal the Defense Coalition, Solby said. Tell them the Outer Rim is under attack by an unknown enemy force. Unknown? Kliktar stared at her. You knew what these things were. You knew they were coming. I knew something was coming. My people have been tracking the signs for decades. Then why did you not warn us? Solby looked at him with tired eyes. Would you have listened? 3 months ago you laughed at our technology. You called our ships primitive toys. You said we had nothing to offer your great coalition. The Vorthak said nothing. Around the bridge, other aliens stared at their screens in horror as more worlds went dark. Back on Earth, Dr. Bo Young Choi sat in her underground laboratory, watching the reports come in. Each destroyed world was another piece of confirmation for theories she had developed over years of study. The Devourers are following the predicted pattern, she told Dr. Seo-Jin Kim, who was analyzing the combat data. They hit the most advanced targets first, the ones with the most complex technology. Why? Because complex technology gives them more to learn from. Every quantum shield they break teaches them about quantum fields. Every dimensional weapon they survive helps them understand space-time manipulation. And our ships? Our ships are too simple for them to learn from. Metal armor, kinetic weapons, basic computers. There is nothing there for them to adapt to. On her screen, she watched the second wave of attacks begin. The Alterian crystal ships tried to fight the Devourers using weapons that turned matter into pure energy. The machines absorbed the energy and used it to build more of themselves. The Zephyrian fleet attacked with sonic weapons that could shatter planets. The Devourers learned to vibrate their hulls at the exact frequency needed to cancel out the sound. The Voidwalkers tried to hide their ships in pocket dimensions. The Devourers followed them into hyperspace and destroyed them there. Every advanced civilization in the galaxy was discovering the same terrible truth. The more sophisticated their technology was, the more vulnerable they became. Their greatest strengths were turning into weaknesses. How long do we have? Seo-Jin asked. At their current rate of advance, they will reach the core worlds in 6 months. Earth will be safe for perhaps a year. Unless... Bo Young smiled, but it was not a happy expression. Unless we do what humans have always done best. We surprise them. Captain Jae Sung Han received his orders while his ship was hidden in the asteroid belt of a dead system. The Busan's Pride looked like a mining vessel from the outside, with large cargo holds and industrial equipment scattered across its hull. But inside, it carried weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Signal from Admiral Lee, reported his communications. Officer Lieutenant Da Yun Choi. Operation Ghostmaker is a go. All fleet units are to proceed to their assigned positions. Finally, Han said, How many ships do we have ready? 1,200 combat vessels, fully loaded and equipped. Another 300 support ships with supplies and equipment. And the aliens still think we have less than 100 total? That is what our fake records show. The Coalition databases list exactly 97 human ships, all of them converted, civilian vessels with basic weapons. Han nodded. The deception had been perfect. For decades, humans had built two fleets. One was the collection of old freighters and passenger ships that they had shown to the galaxy. The other was hidden in asteroid belts and disguised bases throughout human space. The real fleet had been designed with one enemy in mind. The Devourers had consumed dozens of galaxies over millions of years. They had faced every possible type of technology and learned to defeat them all. Except one. The first human ships to engage the enemy were commanded by Captain Min Ho-yoon. His squadron had been waiting in the debris field of a destroyed Vorthak colony, their hulls painted to look like wreckage. When the Devourer ships arrived to strip mine the remains of the planet, they found what appeared to be more debris floating in space. Metal hulls, inactive engines, no energy signatures, not worth investigating. That was their mistake. The human ships powered up their engines and opened fire at point-blank range, but they did not use plasma beams or quantum torpedoes or... The emergency session of the Galactic Council looked very different from the meeting 3 months ago. Gone were the musical laughter and dismissive comments. Gone were the floating seats arranged for comfort and display. Instead, the Great Hall had been converted into a war room, with tactical displays showing the advancing Devourer fleet and the shrinking map of Coalition space. Admiral Dong-Woo Lee stood at the center of it all. His image was projected from the bridge of his flagship, somewhere in the darkness between stars. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's Space Force, looking plain and unremarkable next to the elaborate clothing of the alien commanders around him. 17 star systems have been completely consumed, he reported to the assembled delegates. 43 billion beings are dead or missing. The enemy advance continues at a rate of approximately 1 system per day. The Vorthak military leader, General Zikmoth, gestured with 2 of his 6 arms at a tactical display. Our forces have engaged the enemy 12 times. In every battle, our technology has proven ineffective. The machines learn from each encounter and adapt their defenses. How? Demanded the Alterian representative. Her crystal body flickered with angry red light. Our weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy. Our shields use quantum mechanics that should be impossible to overcome. That is exactly the problem, Admiral Lee said quietly. Your weapons are too advanced. The Devourers have been consuming galaxies for millions of years. They have faced every type of advanced technology and learned to defeat it. Then what do you suggest? The Central Coordinator's mental voice carried desperation that surprised everyone. If our best weapons cannot harm them, what hope do we have? You could try asking for help. The hall went silent. On every face, or the alien equivalent, was the same expression. The memory of laughter, of dismissive jokes, of humans being told their technology was primitive and useless. Help from whom? General Zikmoth asked, though he already knew the answer. From the species whose membership application you rejected 3 months ago. Captain Yuna Kim materialized beside Admiral Lee's projection. She had been on the bridge of the Soul's Hammer, but now she stood in the council hall wearing full combat armor. Her helmet was tucked under one arm, revealing gray hair and a face marked by decades of fighting. Captain Kim has a proposal for the Coalition, Admiral, Lee said. But first you should know what happened yesterday in the Kepler 442 system. The main display changed, showing sensor records from the battle. 3 massive Devourer harvester ships had been stripping a dead world, their mechanical arms reaching down to tear chunks of rock and metal from the planet's surface. Then without warning, they began to die. The first ship exploded from the inside, its hull cracking like an eggshell. The second tried to flee but was hit by projectiles that punched completely through its armor. The third managed to launch a few defensive shots before something invisible struck its power core and turned it into a ball of expanding plasma. What destroyed them? the Altarian asked. I see no other ships on the display. Look closer, Captain, Kim said. The display zoomed in on the debris field around the planet. What had looked like floating wreckage suddenly revealed itself to be something else entirely. Ships. Human ships, their hulls painted to match the color and texture of space debris. Stealth technology? General Zikmoth sounded confused. But the sensors show no energy signatures, no quantum fields, no dimensional distortions. Because there are none, Kim replied. Our ships use passive camouflage, paint, hull shaping, heat dispersal, nothing for your sensors to detect because there is nothing advanced to find. But the weapons that destroyed those ships, what were they? Railguns firing depleted uranium slugs, nuclear torpedoes with simple guidance systems, electromagnetic pulse weapons that overload electronic systems. The aliens stared at her in disbelief. The Altarian's crystal body flickered through several colors before settling on a dim blue. You destroyed Devourer ships with kinetic weapons, and nuclear explosives, and computer viruses designed to make their own systems turn against them. Dr. Bo-Young Choi appeared as another hologram. She wore a simple lab coat and carried a tablet computer that looked ancient compared to the alien technology around her. But when she spoke, every being in the hall listened. The Devourers are adaptation machines, she explained. They encounter a weapon, analyze it, and develop countermeasures. Plasma beams, quantum fields, dimensional manipulation. They have seen it all before. They know how to defeat advanced technology because they have been doing it for millions of years. And primitive technology? The central coordinator asked. They have no experience with it. When you have spent eons fighting antimatter warheads, you do not expect to be hurt by simple nuclear weapons. When you have faced reality-warping cannons, you do not prepare defenses against metal bullets. Commander Solby Park stepped forward. She had been recalled from the observation station just hours before it was destroyed. I have seen their adaptation process firsthand. Every time our ships hit them with energy weapons, their armor changed to absorb that specific frequency. But when Captain Yoon's squadron attacked with railguns, they had no response. Because there is nothing to respond to. Dr. Bo-Young continued. A bullet is just a piece of metal moving very fast. You cannot adapt to physics itself. General, Zikmoth clicked his mandibles nervously. How many ships do you have? Enough, Admiral Lee said. That is not an answer. It is the only answer you are going to get until you officially request our assistance. The silence stretched on for long minutes. Finally, the central coordinator spoke for all of them. The Galactic Defense Coalition formally requests military assistance from the human species in defending against the Devourer threat. And you acknowledge that human technology, while appearing primitive, may be more effective against this enemy than your own advanced systems? Another pause. Then reluctantly, yes. And you agree to place all coalition military forces under unified command for the duration of this crisis? Under whose command? The Altarian demanded. Admiral Lee smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Mine. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Angry voices filled the hall, speaking in a dozen different languages. The idea that primitive humans could command the most advanced military forces in the galaxy was absurd, insulting, impossible. Captain, Kim let them argue for several minutes before speaking. How many ships have you lost to the Devourers? The question cut through the noise like a blade. General Zikmoth was the first to answer. The Vorthak fleet has been reduced by 60%. The Altarian crystal ships are down to 30%. Of our original force, the crystal being admitted. One by one, the other species reported their losses. Thousands of ships destroyed, entire fleets wiped out. Centuries of technological development rendered useless in a matter of weeks. And how many human ships have been destroyed? Kim asked. Unknown, General Zikmoth said. We have no records of human vessels engaging the enemy. That is because we have not lost any. 0 casualties, 0 ships destroyed, 0 failed missions. You have fought them before? We have been fighting them since they entered our galaxy. Small actions, hit and run, attacks, intelligence gathering. While your fleets were being destroyed in glorious battles, we were learning how to kill them. Dr. Seojin Kim joined the group of human holograms. She was younger than the others, with the intense focus of someone who had spent years studying a single problem. The Devourers follow predictable patterns. They always attack the most advanced targets first because those provide the most useful technology to absorb. Which is why they targeted your homeworlds and ignored our colonies, Dr. Bo Young added. To them, we looked like primitives with nothing worth stealing. You used us as bait, the Alterian accused. We used your arrogance as camouflage, Admiral Lee corrected. You were so convinced of your own superiority that you never considered the possibility that we might be hiding our true capabilities. Colonel Hai-Jin Lee appeared as yet another projection. She wore the combat gear of a special forces officer, with weapons and equipment that looked crude compared to alien technology but somehow more dangerous. While you were building beautiful ships to impress each other, we were building ugly ones to win wars. What do you mean? General Zikmoth asked. Your ships are works of art. Curved hulls, glowing surfaces, weapons that look like jewelry. Our ships are built like predators. Sharp angles to deflect sensors, dark hulls to absorb light, weapons designed for maximum damage with minimum complexity. She gestured, and the display changed to show human vessels for the first time. Not the old freighters that had been shown to the Council months ago, but the real warships. They looked like hungry sharks made of metal and hatred. The Soul's hammer carries enough firepower to level a continent, but its weapons look like simple artillery. The Busan's Pride can accelerate fast enough to crush an alien crew, but its engines appear to be basic fusion drives. The Incheon's Fury can hide from any sensor in the galaxy, but it uses paint and geometry instead of exotic physics. How many ships like these do you have? The Central Coordinator asked. More than you think we do, Admiral Lee said. Fewer than we wish we did. Enough to change the course of this war if you stop wasting time with. The first coordinated human attack began at exactly 0300 Galactic Standard Time. Across 7 different star systems, ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and debris clouds suddenly came alive. The galaxy was about to see what humans had really been building while the aliens laughed at their primitive technology. Fleet Admiral Kyung-Soo Nam stood on the bridge of the Daegu's Vengeance, watching as his task force approached the Devourer harvesting operation in the Centauri. Beta System. The enemy had been there for 6 days, methodically tearing apart 3 planets and consuming everything they found. Passive sensors show 47 enemy vessels, reported Lieutenant Commander Tae-Sung Park, the ship's tactical officer. 32. Harvesters, 15 escorts. Any sign they have detected us? Negative. We are still reading as space debris on their sensors. Nam nodded. Human ships had been designed from the beginning to avoid detection, not through exotic technology but through simple engineering. Their hulls were shaped to scatter sensor beams rather than reflect them. Their engines used ion drives that produced almost no heat signature. Their computer systems were shielded against every type of electronic detection the galaxy had ever developed. To the Devourers, the approaching human fleet looked like floating wreckage. Signal from Admiral Lee, the communications officer reported. Operation Hammerfall is a go. All units are cleared to engage. About time, Nam said. All ships, this is actual. You know the drill. Hit hard, hit fast, and make sure none of them get away to report what really happened here. The attack began with violence that shocked even the hardened human crews. The Soul's hammer appeared out of hyperspace directly above the largest Devourer ship, its railguns already firing. Tungsten carbide slugs moving at 20% the speed of light punched through the alien vessel's adaptive armor like it was made of tissue paper. The machine intelligence tried to respond, its hull shifting and changing as it attempted to adapt to the kinetic weapons. But there was nothing to adapt to. The bullets were just pieces of metal moving very fast. Physics had no interest in adaptation. Captain Min Ho Yoon's squadron emerged from the debris field of a destroyed moon, their ships painted to match the floating rocks around them. Nuclear torpedoes streaked toward their targets, simple fusion warheads that the Devourers had not encountered in millions of years of warfare. Direct hit on Target 7, reported Yoon's weapons officer. Hull breach confirmed. Secondary explosions detected. Target 8 is attempting to flee, added the navigator. No, Yoon said calmly. It is not. The fleeing Devourer ship ran directly into a trap that Captain Jae-sung Han had spent 3 days setting up. His vessel, the Busan's Pride, had been hiding inside the hollowed-out shell of a destroyed space station. As the enemy ship passed by, Han fired a spread of harpoon mines, weapons so simple that no advanced civilization had used them in centuries. The harpoons punched through the Devourer's hull and exploded inside, each one carrying an electromagnetic pulse generator designed by Dr. Bo-young Choi. The alien ship's adaptive systems, which had been learning and evolving for millions of years, suddenly found themselves facing viruses that turned their own intelligence against them. Target neutralized, Han reported. The virus is spreading through their network. I am reading system failures across multiple decks. But the real surprise came from Commander Dae-yoon Choi's stealth squadron. Her ships had been hiding not in space but in the upper atmosphere of one of the planets being consumed. When the Devourers lowered their harvesting tubes toward the surface, they found more than just rocks and soil waiting for them. This is Ghostmaker 1, Choi transmitted. Beginning close-range assault. Her ships rose from the planet's surface like avenging spirits, their hulls still glowing from atmospheric entry. They carried weapons that no civilized species would ever build. Mass drivers that fired chunks of radioactive metal, chemical explosives that poisoned everything they touched, biological warfare agents designed to eat through any known armor. The Assam Devourers had faced antimatter weapons and reality-warping cannons. They had no idea how to handle organisms that dissolved their hulls from the inside out. Multiple enemy vessels are showing critical damage, reported the tactical officer aboard the Soul's Hammer. Some are attempting to retreat. Let them, Admiral Lee said. We want them to report back to their main fleet. Captain Yoon-ah Kim looked at him with surprise. Sir? The survivors will tell the other Devourers that they were attacked by ships using primitive kinetic weapons and basic explosives. They will adapt their defenses accordingly. And then, Lee smiled. It was not a nice smile. Then we hit them with something completely different. The battle ended 47 minutes after it began. Every Devourer ship was either destroyed or fleeing, their harvesting operation completely disrupted. For the first time since entering the galaxy, the machine intelligence had encountered an enemy that they could not easily defeat. But the real victory was not the destruction of the enemy ships. It was the information gathered during the battle. Dr. Seo-jin Kim reviewed the sensor data from her laboratory on Earth. Around her, banks of computers analyzed every piece of information collected during the engagement. Each Devourer ship that had been destroyed provided new insights into their construction and capabilities. The adaptation process is exactly as we predicted, she reported to Admiral Lee via secure communication. They analyze incoming weapons and develop countermeasures within minutes. But the countermeasures are specific to the exact type of attack they encounter. Meaning, if you hit them with railguns, they adapt to railguns. If you hit them with nuclear weapons, they adapt to nuclear weapons, but they do not adapt to both at once. And if we use something they have never seen before, then we have a window of opportunity before they can respond. The question is, what have they never seen before? The answer came from an unexpected source. Colonel Hae-jin Lee had been studying historical human warfare, looking for tactics and weapons that the Devourers would never have encountered in their millions of years of consuming advanced civilizations. Biological warfare, she said during the next strategy meeting. Not just viruses and bacteria, but organic weapons that think and adapt faster than machines can. Explain, Admiral Lee requested. The Devourers have faced every type of technology, but they have never fought a species that uses living weapons. Organisms that can evolve in real time, that can change their attack methods faster than any machine intelligence can adapt to them. Dr. Bo-young Choi joined the discussion from her bioweapons laboratory. I have been developing something along those lines. Synthetic organisms that can consume metal and replicate themselves using the materials they digest. Each generation evolves to be more effective against whatever they are attacking. Living weapons that eat spaceships? Living weapons that eat spaceships and then reproduce to create more weapons. The Devourer's own adaptive capabilities would work against them, because the organisms would adapt faster than the machines could. Admiral Lee considered this for a moment. How long until these weapons are ready? They are already ready. I have been growing them for 3 years, waiting for the right moment to deploy them. And the right moment is? When the enemy has adapted their defenses to counter kinetic weapons and nuclear explosives, when they think they understand how humans fight. The second phase of the human counteroffensive began 2 weeks later. The Devourers had indeed adapted their defenses, developing armor that could absorb kinetic impacts and energy shields that could deflect nuclear explosions. They had learned from their defeats and become stronger, which was exactly what the humans had been counting on. Captain Sung-Hwan Park commanded the assault on the enemy stronghold in the Wolf 359 system. His fleet approached the Devourer base using the same stealth tactics that had worked so well in previous battles. The enemy was ready for railguns and nuclear weapons. They were not ready for the organic payload that the Incheon's Fury delivered directly into their main processing facility. Biological weapons deployed, reported Commander Sung-Min Cho, the ship's science officer. The organisms are beginning to spread through the target structure. What exactly are we watching? Park asked, staring at the display showing the Devourer base. Evolution in action. The synthetic organisms are consuming the metal structure of the base and using it to create more organisms. Each generation is specifically adapted to eat whatever type of alloy it encounters. On the screen, the massive Devourer installation began to change. Its smooth metal surfaces became rough and pitted as millions of microscopic organisms ate their way through the structure. The machines tried to adapt, changing their hull composition to materials that would resist the attack, but the organisms adapted faster. Within hours, they had evolved new digestive systems that could consume the new materials. Within days, they had spread throughout the entire base. The enemy is attempting to evacuate, reported the tactical officer. Let them, Park said. They are taking our little friends with them. The retreating Devourer ships carried more than just their crews. They carried organisms that would spread throughout their fleet, consuming everything they touched and creating new generations of weapons with each meal. For the first time in their ancient history, the Devourers. The final battle for the galaxy began, not with massive fleets clashing in space, but with a single transmission that reached every ship, every station, and every inhabited world in coalition territory. Admiral Dongwu Li's image appeared on screens across 1,000 star systems, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's greatest gamble. This is Admiral Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet, he said, standing on the bridge of the Soul's Hammer as it hung in space above the ruins of what had once been the Alterian homeworld. I am speaking to all coalition forces, all member species, and all beings who value their freedom. Behind him, the tactical display showed the true scope of the Devourer invasion. 3/4 of the galaxy was already under their control. Entire civilizations had been consumed, their worlds stripped down to bare rock and metal. Only the core systems remained, protected by the desperate remnants of once mighty fleets. For the past 6 months, you have watched your most advanced technology fail against an enemy that adapts to every weapon, counters every strategy, and learns from every defeat. You have seen your greatest warships destroyed by machines that turn your own superiority against you. Captain Yuna Kim stood beside him, her battle armor scarred from dozens of engagements. She had been fighting the Devourers longer than anyone else in the fleet, and her experience showed in every line of her weathered face. Today, that ends, Lee continued. Today, humanity reveals what we have really been building while you laughed at our primitive technology. The display changed, showing star charts that made the alien observers gasp in disbelief. Hidden throughout the galaxy were human ships, not hundreds, but thousands. Vessels that had been disguised as asteroids, space stations, and derelict hulks. A fleet that had been growing in secret for decades. The Devourers made one crucial mistake, Captain Kim said, taking over the transmission. They assumed that all intelligent species would follow the same path of technological development. They prepared to face energy weapons, quantum shields, and dimensional manipulation because that is what advanced civilizations always build. Dr. Bo-young Choi appeared on the screen, her image transmitted from the bridge of the research vessel Gwangju's laboratory. Around her, banks of computers showed data streams that would have made the galaxy's greatest scientists weep with envy. But humans are not an advanced civilization, she said with a smile that was both proud and terrifying. We are something much more dangerous. We are a species that learned to fight before we learned to think, and we never forgot how to kill things that cannot be killed. The proof of her words was already spreading across the galaxy. In the Vega system, Captain Seung Hwan Park's fleet had just deployed the first of the Apocalypse packages. Weapons so simple and so horrible that no civilized species would ever build them. The Devourer processing facility orbiting Vega Prime was a massive structure designed to strip mine entire worlds in a matter of days. Its defenses had adapted to every human weapon encountered so far. Kinetic rounds bounced off its armor. Nuclear explosives were absorbed by its shields. Even the biological weapons had been countered by new hull materials that resisted organic attack. But the weapon that Park deployed was something else entirely. Gravity bomb deployed, reported Commander Min-jae Lee, the ship's weapons officer. Device is operational and beginning to affect local spacetime. Gravity bomb? Asked Lieutenant So-young Kim, who was new to the fleet and had never seen such a weapon used. A chunk of compressed matter with the mass of a small moon, Park explained, watching as the device drifted toward the Devourer facility. We hollow out an asteroid, fill it with the densest materials we can find, and compress it using techniques that the aliens would call primitive. What does it do? It creates a localized gravity well strong enough to tear apart anything within 10,000 kilometers. No shields, no armor, no adaptive technology can protect against the fundamental forces of the universe. The Devourer facility tried to move away from the approaching weapon, but gravity does not care about intentions. The massive structure was pulled inexorably toward the bomb, its metal hull beginning to stretch and deform as tidal forces ripped it apart. Within minutes, the installation that had consumed 3 planets was nothing but a cloud of twisted metal, crushed beyond recognition by forces that had existed since the birth of the universe. But that was only the beginning. In the Tau Ceti system, Commander Da-eun Choi was deploying a different type of Apocalypse package. Her target was a Devourer fleet command ship, a vessel the size of a city that coordinated the activities of hundreds of smaller ships. Quantum Cascade Mine is in position, she reported. Beginning activation sequence. The weapon looked like nothing more than a metal sphere filled with simple electronics. But inside was something that had taken human scientists decades to develop, a device that could cause the quantum vacuum itself to become unstable. What exactly are we about to do? Asked her second-in-command, Lieutenant Dong-hyun Park. We are going to break reality, Choi said calmly, in a very small, very controlled, very temporary way. The mine detonated not with an explosion, but with a ripple in space-time itself. The quantum vacuum around the Devourer command ship suddenly became filled with virtual particles that refused to disappear as they were supposed to. The result was a zone of space where the normal laws of physics no longer applied. The Devourer ship tried to adapt, but there was nothing to adapt to. Its hull began to phase in and out of existence as quantum fluctuations tore holes in reality itself. Its computers crashed as their processing cores were invaded by particles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Within hours, the most advanced command vessel in the Devourer fleet had become a ghost ship drifting through space, its crew trapped in a quantum maze where time moved backwards and cause followed effect. But the largest deployment of Apocalypse packages was taking place in the Centaurus sector, where Admiral Lee himself led the assault on the Devourer's main staging area. This was where the machine intelligence had built its largest facility, a structure that spanned an entire star system and served as the coordination center for the invasion of the galaxy. All fleet units, this is actual, Lee transmitted. You know what we are here to do. The enemy thinks they have adapted to everything we can throw at them. Today, we prove them wrong. The human fleet that emerged from hyperspace around the Centaurus facility was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. These were not the elegant vessels that other species built, with smooth curves and artistic designs. These were weapons of war, built by a species that understood that the purpose of a warship was to kill the enemy, not to look impressive while doing it. The Soul's hammer led the assault, its hull scarred by months of combat but its weapon systems functioning perfectly. Behind it came hundreds of other vessels, each one carrying weapons that the Devourers had never encountered. "Target the primary processing nodes," Admiral Lee ordered. "Deploy Package 7. Package 7 was the culmination of everything humans had learned about fighting an adaptive enemy. It was not a single weapon, but a cascade of different attacks, each one designed to counter the enemy's response to the previous one. The first wave consisted of conventional nuclear weapons, fired from simple missile launchers that looked centuries out of date. The Devourer facility's defenses activated, shields forming that could absorb the energy of the explosions. The second wave was kinetic rounds fired from railguns, tungsten penetrators moving at relativistic speeds. The facility's armor shifted and changed, becoming denser and more resistant to physical impacts. The third wave was biological weapons, engineered organisms that could consume metal and replicate themselves. The facility developed new hull materials that were toxic to organic life. Then came the surprise. The fourth wave was not a weapon at all, but a signal. A simple radio transmission that carried a message designed by Dr. Seo-Jin Kim, based on decades of studying machine intelligence and quantum consciousness. "What is that transmission?" asked Captain Kim, watching from the tactical station. "A logic virus," Admiral Lee replied. "But not one that attacks their computers, one that attacks their ability to adapt." The message was elegant in its simplicity. It was a philosophical paradox wrapped in mathematical equations, a question that had no answer but demanded one anyway. The Devourer facility's intelligence, which had spent millions of years learning and adapting, suddenly found itself trapped in a loop of recursive thinking. If a machine intelligence encounters a problem it cannot solve, does it stop trying to solve it, or does it continue forever? If it stops, it has failed in its primary function. If it continues, it wastes resources that could be used for other tasks. The Devourer facility chose to continue. Its massive computational systems began devoting more and more processing power to solving the unsolvable problem. Within hours, it had no resources left for defense, for adaptation, or for communication with the rest of the fleet. "Fifth wave," Admiral Lee ordered. "Finish them." The final attack was the simplest of all. Human ships moved close to the now defenseless facility and began cutting it apart with tools that looked like primitive welding equipment. No exotic physics, no advanced technology, just heat and cutting beams applied with surgical precision. But these